Hey, good morning, Renny Doyle podcast. Another morning. We got some special guests today that is no strangers to the industry. If you live under a rock, you might not know who they are. Matter of fact, you'd have to live under a boulder that you couldn't push up. And so we're gonna dive into these two here in a second. In the meantime, some small talk. So, Kris, we've had a productive. It's been a productive year. I think a lot of people are feeling that way, right? You know, I'm looking at it, and I think you guys probably do the same. Hopefully, Kyle's going to make it on, by the way. But man, is it just like, okay, like where did summer go?
Yeah.
Honestly, it went by so fast. Here's my prediction, because I do have a theory on this. I think at least where we're outside of Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It didn't really start getting hot until like July. I feel like all of June was like spring continued. And then suddenly it was hot in July, and now it's already September and it's over. And so that's my theory, is because the weather didn't actually get super hot until later in the summer. Summer just felt like it was this long.
Well, I think, you know what? We got to bring you out this way if you need summer.
It sounds like
we've got summer and then some.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you imagine, trying to think right now, I grew up in these mountains, right? And it's sad to see them. I mean, literally as a crow flies 2 miles away. We watched the fire crest into the ski area last night.
Oh, wow.
I was sitting there texting with Kris, and I went, "Oh my God, the whole ridge just blew up."
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to get into politics, but it was funny. A few years ago, I was asked by the Guard because I've lived in remote mountain communities, for so long, 30 plus years. So I did a study, and I said, here's the biggest challenges, during an earthquake, this is what's going to happen. During a flood, this is going to happen. And then the fire in these canyons, these areas. And I didn't just do this. It wasn't my greatness. I went to all the outdoorsmen I know, and I went to the fire chief. That's a really good friend of mine. I said, hey, I'm going to have a small audience. I'm going to have somebody listen to me at the top levels for like 45 seconds. Where's the big areas? Here's what I'm thinking. The area that's burning right now. They haven't touched it in 50 years. They won't manage it because the environmental groups keep coming in and telling them, well, there's a spotted moth that you're going to kill. And this is what happens. We've got what's called buckthorn. It's 10 feet tall and dead. And it's just it's unreal, but it's
timber.
It's unreal. So half our town's evacuated. And we're really fortunate. We're really blessed because we're in what's called a safe zone. We're out on the east end. We're kind of in the prairie, if you could imagine.
Yeah.
So we're at the big end of the valley. Not a lot of trees, not a lot of houses out here. Our horses, everybody's safe here. So we're really lucky. But last night I had to finally come off the porch because you're just watching beauty just burn up in front of you.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yep. And where we live, you go back up towards Yellowstone and stuff like that, and they do a good job of bringing it back. Here, there's a fire from 20 years ago, and it looks like the surface of the moon. They've done nothing to bring it back, and so you can tell I'm a little hot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and concerned, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad. It's just. It's a part of nature. I mean, this is my 5th big fire in 30 something years. We've had a lot of little scares, but this is a big one, and it's we'll see where it goes. And they're doing the helicopters, are just, we had yesterday, we noticed Kris and I are weird. We watch an app. I got another friend of mine. I watch an airplane app. I'm constantly on it. It's kind of a hobby, and I've got alerts for just different flights and stuff like that. And it's fun because all the flights out of Europe come right over Big Bear. So they're coming in from Frankfurt, or they come right over us. So it's fun just to watch. I don't watch a lot of TV, I read. But we noticed that the helicopters and the airplanes slow down. Well, Kris, I found out why is they ran out of fuel. Is that a truck coming up with Jet A jackknifed coming up the mountain. Yeah. Jeez. So thank God they were able to it didn't spill. It just got caught on a hairpin. They were able to straighten it out. One of our kids' friends that went to school was part of the savior team, for bringing the fuel up, and the helicopters are back up and going hard. So,
damn.
Yeah. So,
it's
hey,
crazy on the West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Urable's online. So we've had hey, do you guys see the trike? Can you guys see it from there?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Ask you about that.
Okay. So I swear to God, this is a true story. My wife is crazy about Mel Gibson. She's always had a mad crush. She said, matter of fact, when she met me, she goes, I love you with all my heart, but if I got a chance, I'm going to make some forgiveness,
Celebrity hall pass.
Yeah, exactly. So she was at a friend of a friend's house this weekend that's in Hollywood, and that was Mel Gibson's adult tricycle.
No way.
I swear to God. And I came out, and I swear I think I saw her sniffing the seat. But yeah, so I'm working on, we're going to fill up it's cool though. It's kind of cool.
Super cool.
Most of our bike collection. But so hey, you're able, I remember the day I met you guys. The day.
We do too.
Yes.
The day. And I remember talking to a few people and saying, these guys are going to change things up. It was, you guys were powerful, and you're a family, and I wish Kyle was on. I know where's Kyle? He's out doing something.
He just got called over his house. He's been living with Kris for almost the last year while his house has been being built. Now they're living here for this.
Slight correction. Over a year, not just about a year.
Not that you're counting.
Just like a month. I'm counting.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother was with us for most of COVID, and he just had major surgery, and he's out back on his. Not that we don't love him, right, Kris? We love our brothers.
Course. Love the brothers.
But it's good for him. So he's got a new house being built.
Yeah, he got called over there this morning because they're hoping to be able to move in this weekend. So the inspector is coming out on Friday. So he got called over this morning to kind of meet with the builder and the whole team and make sure everything is buttoned up.
How cool is that?
We've been moving him over the last, month, Kris.
Yeah.
A little bit here and there in the pod and, a couple of U-Haul trucks and all that. But now Kelly, little Jake and the two dogs and Kat are living with me and Vicky right now.
Oh, wow. Well, how cool, how exciting though,
Very
cool. It's awesome.
So, I'm going to dive in and then we're going to get into this, but here's the impact that you two made on me. Day one, family business. And Michael, dad to dad, we've had this conversation. I'm going to ask you to tell the story again because I can hear it a million times and it doesn't get old. Is you might not know this, is that I think you're a role model for a lot of fathers. And I just look at you. I'm going to try not to get emotional. So my thyroid's all screwed up right now. So, I'm producing a lot of testosterone, but there's a lot of estrogen going on too. So I get real emotionally imbalanced. I either want to punch you in the face or I want to watch a chick flick and cry. But, Michael, I was really, I was really touched by your interactions with your children. Still are. Every time I see you on anything, it blows me away on how you are with your kids.
Well, thanks.
Blows me away.
It's I don't know what it is. It's probably my upbringing. I had really great, parents, and they modeled that for all of us. They raised 5 kids. I'm not from money. My dad worked, I think, 3 different jobs when he was building the house. He was a World War II vet and basically talked his buddy that owned the lumber yard into loaning him the materials to build the house. Wow. They were war buddies. So he literally built it. He did the plumbing, the electric, everything. So he's just one of those guys, right? That just knew how to do everything.
Wow.
But, I think it was just modeled by my parents, Renny.
I'll tell you.
There's always a lot of respect in the household. And then when Vicky and I got married, we just really wanted to manage the household with kind of a mood-free environment. Because everybody's got their stuff they can bring into the house. We all have our pressures from the daily grind and whatnot. But I just always tried to leave that in the garage before I came into the house because I don't need to unload that on my kids, especially when they're young and growing up. Right. They don't need to know if we're struggling to make ends meet. They just need to, know that they've got a loving environment that they can, feel comfortable in. So we just always focused on being present parents. So that's what so many people in this industry anyway, because I coach a lot of business owners, and it's easy to lose sight of that important stuff. And it's like farming, right? It's like you need to plant this crop now, man, and you need to like focus on the important things that are going to matter in the long run, not how much money you brought in today. You need to think about, what are you doing for your kids? Are you never there because you're trying to make a buck? You need to get out of the shop and just get smart about managing your life, and get some balance back in.
So extreme ownership. And so, I came from a little bit of a challenged background, right? My mom and dad just, hey, it was what it was. I never knew my dad, never saw my parents together. And that did create something, but it's easy for me to go back and blame that, right? I mean, it really isn't. But when I got to the point we had, when I started the businesses, I met Diana. I was already an entrepreneur, and when I was bringing up the kids, you just bring a point. I kind of got trapped in that because I was so wrapped around the axles on I didn't want to go back to being poor that in my 30s, I kind of forgot what was important.
Yeah.
And I was present. I went to my kids' things, if they had a basketball game, man, I'll tell you 90% of what they were involved in, I was there, but I wasn't present. Does that make sense? I was so consumed with just trying to survive. And honestly, it was bullshit. I mean, I was fine. So much of my 30s was just about ego and I don't mean that like in an egotistical way, guys. I don't think I've ever really been an asshole, but I just didn't want to be poor so bad that I lost sight of really what poor was. And poor was not getting to know my kids better and being mellow. So I think that's why I appreciate what you've done so much, is because I was striving to be that. And I don't think I missed it completely. But I hope that my kids took away and that they're closer to what you are, and I hope anybody listening, listen, a lot of us in the detailing industry, and you guys know this, a lot of people have got similar backgrounds that I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
We just a lot of survivalists, in life, and a lot of people that have challenges. Learn from these two different styles in ways. Is that I can tell you right now is the stuff that I put my kids through, me and Diane being so stressed, was unneeded. It was unneeded. And so now I will tell you this, is that our kids are survivors because of it. And I think they're doing a lot better job of managing their workload and fun load. And for that, whether they'll ever give me credit for that or not, I hope they learn that from us, from Diane and I, and that they take that on and they keep passing it on to every generation. Because for a decade to me is not long. I'm 56 years old, but a decade in their young lives was their entire youth.
Yeah.
And I think the undertone right now of just society as a whole, because I think culture is shifting so much and our quality of life is just better than it was 50 years ago even. And I think we just have so many more opportunities and so many. I do feel like the undertone of like the cult is like breaking old patterns. So even if your childhood was rough and maybe you didn't have terrific parents or present parents or anything like that, I do see a lot in people today, and especially new parents today, of making a really concerted effort to just kind of flip the script on that and just say, like, okay, I'm going to be the last one in my line to treat my kids this way. And
Absolutely.
like, I want to set the tone for the future now. And I think that's just really lovely.
No, I do too. And, you bring up a great point too. And I think here's the other thing is that I was raised across the street, BJ Hayden, World War II vet. He was one of the only male figures I had in my life. And man, he was a hard man, loving man in his own way. You know what I'm saying? But I remember getting sent over to his house a couple times when I got a little out of line with my grandma, and it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
We didn't talk. You wouldn't hear a man say these things, and because we are brought up by that generation was a great generation. Now my parents, again, you know what? I can sit there and look back and say this, and this caused me some pain in life, but those same things made me who I am, and there's more greatness in who I am than challenges. And that's where I think that all generations, current, past, way past, and future, own your shit. And for every challenge you had, and for every challenging person you had in your life, that person gave you a gift. If you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You have to be open for it and willing to kind of take it in. But it's so easy to just get wrapped up in your day-to-day stuff that you lose sight of the bigger picture because you kind of take it for granted. That's just a bit of human nature, kind of your life unfolds before you and you don't even realize it until you look back 10 years later and you're like, what did I just do for the last 10 years? So I think just being more purposeful about, how you manage your daily routine. Like it was important for Vicki and I to always have family dinner. Right. So, I mean, it's an old fashioned idea, right? But we love to connect with the kids around the dinner table. And that's where you're able to end up starting. It's the peak of irony, it was the dinner table discussion board,
Yeah. Well, you know what? We were the same way. We didn't eat out a lot. And when we did, it was part of our family culture. We brought their friends in, and we brought, family friends in, and we've always been a family, like, my brother, Kris, you're just talking about, your brother being with you is, my brother's 8 years older than me, and he's been with me the majority of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's just what our family did. We had a good friend of ours. Matter of fact, I won't mention his name now, but he got in a little bit of bind. He is one of the biggest motivators of why I'm where I'm at today in the detailing industry. And very successful guy, but he was going through divorce and got in a little bit of a pickle. And he basically lived at our house for a year. And that was some of my kids, some of our fondest memories is, they called him uncle of those challenging times. And that's just what we did. But the only thing I love to take and combine, Michael, I guarantee you get into, the hard work that you put in to everything you've done is unimaginable. And what I've seen, and Kris, I think you can relate to it because you're in this generation, is so many of the generation right now are so hard on themselves. And they look at what other people have done. I've always told my kids, don't look at what I've done. Don't compare yourself to me. Compare yourself. Take what I've done, the hard work I've done, and get a lot smarter with it. But, these young people, they come into when we're training and we're coaching and mentoring them, and I go, look at, man, don't be hard on yourself. I've got 3 generations, three decades in front of you. You haven't had enough time to develop. Don't develop scars now at your age.
Yeah. And I think that is something that's tough for people, my age, is just with social media being as present as it is and having access to seeing so many success stories, it's hard to remember that what you're seeing is a tiny fraction of people. Okay. Those are lucky people and hardworking people, no doubt, that have found really great success at a really young age. And it's nice to see that as something that's inspirational, something that's motivational. But it should be just that. And I have to remind myself of this on a daily basis. Christ, there's a girl who is like 17 on TikTok making like $50,000 a post. And it's like, oh my God, what have I done? Why am I not a TikTok star? And deep down, I am glad about that. I don't want to be a TikTok star. But, you see things like that and you think like, okay, I'm just doing something wrong because I don't have that. But I think at our age, it's always easy to focus on the next big achievement, the next big thing you can buy, the next big promotion, whatever it might be. And you lose sight, exactly like you were just saying, in like the little things every day. And this past year, living with Kyle and Kelly and Jake and their entire zoo of animals, it's been a lot. Don't get me wrong. It has been overwhelming. I never thought I would be living with a child that isn't mine, but here we are. But looking back at the year, all the little tiny days and all of the little tiny memories and even like terrible days, those are the things that I can really say that I cherish now, because how special is it that I got to spend an entire year with my nephew? Like, I wouldn't have been able to see all of that stuff. And I think it's just something that all of us need to remind ourselves to just appreciate every single day and all of the tiny little things, because ultimately that's what makes your life. Like, it's not the next big thing you can buy. Of course, that's fun when you get to do those things, but it's every single day and all the little tiny things and conversations we get to have with our parents and our kids and nephews. And that's life. And I think we can all just try to remember that. I think it's difficult. We lose sight of it so easily.
No, and it's great to hear somebody your age, say that, because it is, and it's funny is that I listen to our oldest kids, and they're, going through and they're building their lives and they're building their families and their careers, and, they're building themselves. They're, fine tuning themselves. And it's cool to see them go one direction and all of a sudden they retract back to how they used to be when they were younger. And I was talking to one of our kids and I said, that's okay, because even at 56, and I heard Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone say this, they're closer to the humans they were at 12 years old than they are at 30 years old. and don't think that in a weird way. Is what they're saying is they've taught themselves to have fun again and to laugh and be silly. And I think that to have fun and laugh and be silly is such an important part. We went through a challenging time with our family just, a little over a month ago. And I always relate it back to, Bible scripture of Jesus going to the desert for 30 days and 30 nights. Woo! Well, I'll tell you what, is I had some porch time with my dog that we didn't know if he was going to make it until the next morning. We had two family members in the same ICU unit at a hospital, and I was in that desert. And I'll tell you what, I came out a far better human with that, because, and I'm not sure if 10, 15 years ago, I think I would have been a little bitter, and a little angry and a little worked up. And I came out of there and you know what? I just thank my lucky stars for that day. I wasn't looking at tomorrow. I was living in the moment. And it's taken me 56 years to get secure enough in myself and relaxed enough, because I think in my 20s, I had that. I had it going. I was cool. I was all about business, but I was all about play. And then I just got serious. And you can, okay, Darren, my youngest daughter, if you're listening, it's not about not being serious. It's taking myself too serious and forgetting to laugh and forgetting to be silly and doing things, picking up tricycles and bicycles, and it's still being a kid a little bit, and it's just unreal. So, wow. Okay. Well, hey, let's dive into this. So, family business, you just mentioned you're sitting at a dinner table one night. Take it from there.
It sounded like you guys were having chicken or something. You decided that the Urable app would be really good.
What was on the menu?
That was the segue.
Wow. So how do we go from, having chicken to, hey, we're going to start a business, software business. Let's go.
Well, Kris, you and Kyle called the meeting.
Yeah, that's true. It started with when Kyle and I were at our previous jobs before Urable was ever created, and I was, as I like to say, bookending the the company with my dad. Dad was way up here. I was way down here. It was my first job out of college, so but I was working on the sales team there, and it was a very new portion of the company. We didn't have really anything to be managing our sales process, and so I had the idea to create some sort of like CRM system for that company. And at the time, Kyle had been starting to get into programming. So I knew that he could potentially help me build the system, and it could maybe just be like a fun thing that the two of us work on. And so I reached out to him and, asked if he would be willing to build like a sales process system for my little sales team there. So the two of us just started doing that, honestly, for fun. Like, we didn't tell anybody at my company that we were working on that. It was just kind of a behind the scenes thing. Then it started to gain a bit more traction and ultimately ended up being a pretty successful project. And through that, Kyle and I were often not doing the job we were supposed to be doing for the company, and just working on that because it was so much fun to just strategize and work together. And I think our personality types, being as opposite as they could possibly be, really jive well together, I think, in working together. So we just had a blast working on that project. I think that really brought us really close together. And then ultimately, we brought the idea to the family and just said, we would really love to make a career out of this. I was so shocked when Kyle said that to me because I was having a blast. But normally our dynamic is me being like, yay, Kyle, I love you. And him being like, go away, because he's my older brother. And that's just the dynamic. And so when he was like, hey, like, this is really fun, let's keep doing this, I was like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. Kyle loves me. Let's do this. And so it was a very exciting time for me that he was on board for that. And so then, of course, we brought the idea to my parents, and my parents have always been just very big supporters of us. That's just how it's been our entire lives. So to receive their enthusiasm on this as well was fantastic. And then it was just kind of off from there. And, ultimately, my dad was the one that got us to pursue the detailing industry, just being, a car enthusiast. Our idea was to stay in healthcare because that was what our initial system was built for. We were just going to keep doing that. And I think Dad, being in retirement from the healthcare industry, he was like, absolutely not. We're not going back to healthcare. We're done with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I picked detailing really just based on my own experience going to various, detailers. And I loved everything that they did. I mean, I've been into ceramic coating since they came over here, honestly. Mm-hmm. So 20 years probably at this point. So I really loved the service, but the business models, they weren't really run that well. Everything was built around new customer acquisition, and they didn't do anything to follow up with existing customers like me. I'd just fall off the map entirely, until I went back to them on my own volition, asking, hey, you got anything else new? I'm like begging them to do business with them.
I love it.
So that's why I picked detailing, because I really felt like all the stuff that I had learned in the previous 3 decades of work could manifest itself in an entirely different way within the entrepreneurial community. And I thought, God, what a better way of giving back in retirement than, helping an industry that is kind of just everybody's on their own. And it just felt like, God, let's just rally everybody together around something that can elevate the industry, not just one shop. We didn't want to just do something custom for one place. We wanted to do something that was, approachable for the entire industry, not only from a price point, but from a usability standpoint, and just improve an industry. That was the goal.
Similarities is that when we started training, so we had 6 shops, and in late 2004, a guy named Matt Williams out of Marysville, back towards you guys, approached me online in a forum and said, hey, do you train people? Well, we had just sold off. We were in the midst. We had 6 shops, and I was thinking about selling a couple of them off. It was killing me, right? So we started training, and when we saw that there was a market for it, my intentions were, hey, you know what, man? And the same with even this podcast, we don't monetize from this. I mean, are we silly? I mean, could we? I mean, yeah, if we changed the tempo, I guess we could, but I don't want to. Here's why. You just nailed it, and I think a big reason why you guys are successful is we wanted to change lives. My goal was to take an impact in exactly the same way. Here we are running $1 million operation. Most people were struggling to bring in $100,000. And if they did that, it was considered great. And it was a good janitorial job at best. There was a handful of detailers globally that were really entrepreneurs, that were really going after it and turning it up. By 2006, we had gotten connected with amazing people. Jim Gogan, mentions his name all the time, is that, Jim helped really solidify where we were going. And he was such a great friend as I'd bounce things off of him. But I think, guys, if you listen to this, one hint is do it with a wholesome reality. Do it with a wholesome reason. Don't just go out to the reason why I see successful shops and maybe shops that are struggling. There's many of the shops that are struggling are selling something to sell something. The shops that are doing the best are selling something because they believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%.
So, so family business. What's different? I mean, you guys have worked with colleagues and employees. What changes when you're a family business? What's the dynamics? Because a lot of people listening to this, most Main Street businesses in America are exactly what we are, family businesses. So what's the change? How do you have to handle yourself and some of the challenges? And obviously you guys have fun together, but what's kind of explain what the difference is?
Well, I think just in the way that we interact with our users, I think something that we've really carried from being a family dynamic is being very like relationship first, building relationships with our users, not just, here's a product that we made, good luck. We want them to feel like they're part of this. They're part of what we now call the Urable family. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to help whatever problem it is that you're facing. And I think that's something that has set us apart from a lot of other companies, is just the fact that people feel like they're part of something bigger and they feel like they actually know us, and that's meaningful to them and that's meaningful to us. This has been the most fulfilling career that we could have, because we didn't come into it for like a pump and dump kind of thing, like just like let's make a bunch of money and get out of here and like we don't want to interact. We really came into it to change lives and to improve people's work so then they can get out of the shop and get back to their families, because that was something that we valued. And I think the fact that we did come into that with that in mind is just something that people can feel. I think it ended up being quite a tangible thing, and something that's really bode well for us. And I'm just super proud of ourselves.
So how do you guys separate the business from pleasure? Well, you guys, there's family time, there's work time. Do you guys, like in our household, and it's funny because I mentioned earlier, I was so driven, right, that I had my nose down. And when I say that, guys, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you the facts around that. When my kids were young, I had basketball, football. I was a football coach. I went to dad dances. I did all this stuff. The difference is that like in 2007, I'd never built a website myself. We couldn't find a good website builder. So I decided to learn some code. And I built our biggest and most successful site up to this time on my own. And we'd put the kids to bed. We'd say our prayers, and Dad would go to work until 2-3 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I had to take and set a limit. So from 7 to 7, I could talk about business. I was business. 7 in the morning, 7 at night. After 7, no business till the kids went to bed. Mm-hmm. And so how do you guys separate now? It's opposite. Diane, I can't get her, it's like, okay, shut up already, So I want to do from like 9 to 3 or 9 to 4, and at 7 o'clock, she's still, training next week. And I'm like, no, shush, and so how do you guys, because you're a growing business, you guys are, your name in the industry, and you guys have engaged and you're changing lives and you're so wholesome. How do you turn that off? Or do you?
I'm learning. I'm a work in progress. Kris tries to get me to like take it down a notch.
Yeah, honestly,
I'm living the dream, man. So it's like you can't stop the enthusiasm from pouring out of me. So I am like so all in on this, and not because I'm chasing the dollars anymore, right? I'm done with that. Right. I'm so excited about just making an impact, so I can't contain it sometimes. So I'm like, I could be talking work for, literally 12 hours straight.
Yes, that is a fact. And there are times we're all sitting down at dinner together and he's trying to talk work and we're like, Dad, stop. Like, let's just have dinner.
I love it.
And they're right, of course, right? They're absolutely right. And I know it, but it's like, oh my God, I got so much energy bundled up in this. It's tough to contain it.
Well, you guys probably find that, this industry being as widespread as and so diverse like it is, it's like a 24/7 industry.
It is.
Yeah. Well, And for us, it like literally is. I mean, we just opened up in Ireland and New Zealand. So,
Wow.
very different time zones.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is tough. So now advice to family businesses. We just heard about, the kids kind of want to shut Michael down a little bit. They're like, Dad, calm down. And there's times like when I got a call this morning, and the president, Shane Mayfield of the Mafia, is like, okay, hey, who qualifies? Who do you guys have as ideas of masters? Well, now I can't shut my mind down, because to the rest of the world it doesn't mean a lot. But when we give the title of master to somebody, a master detailer, it means a lot, because it's not just work, it's their family life. It's their, are they investing? Are they preparing? Are they a true entrepreneur? Are they really getting it? Are they 360 degrees, or are they 180? And so I told him I'd have an answer to him today, because if I sleep on it tonight, I won't sleep tonight. And so it's what advice would you guys give to a family business?
Well, I mean, honestly, just obviously carving out time, because that's something that we've always had as a family. Quite honestly, I think the fact that we can work a little bit more than usual works for us, just because we're so passionate about what we do, and we genuinely enjoy it. This is like a family legacy at this point. So I think sometimes our work conversations don't even feel like work conversations at this point. But I think, just always checking in with everyone. Like I can say, reflecting back to what we were talking about earlier with, always having the family dinners, and, you and Mom always checking in with us, and, how was your day at school? That was really meaningful to us. And I think we couldn't appreciate it until we got older, just to feel heard in your family. And like, I like to think of, all the people that you surround yourself with, mentors, friends, whatever. These are other teammates in this game of life. And I really lucked out. I got some great elder teammates. They are experts. They've been through a lot, and I can learn so much from them. And even the other way around, I think that adults can learn so much from their children, just like remembering to have fun, remembering, what life is all about. And so I think just having that time to connect with your built-in teammates is just, it's so important.
I'll never forget our kids, when we got our horses, one of my kids asked me, why that, why'd you get a horse? And I said, man, I always wanted a pony. I got one. He's just big, and they're like, they can't believe it. They're just like, holy shit, Dad's got a horse. I mean, really? I think our daughter came out just to watch me ride, just to make sure I wasn't, bullshitting her, and I'm like, no, the closest thing I could have as a kid is a cowboy hat and a little horse head on a broomstick, and run around. Now I got the real thing. Damn, the thing eats a lot. It's like, holy shit, you got to put shoes on it. And so, yeah, that, great point. So Michael, from your perspective, again, is that, you've got some decades into the driver's seat, and I love seeing the passion. I love seeing that, sometimes I want to curve my passion down and just go, okay, today, I'm not going to allow one business thought into my head. That usually lasts about 45 seconds. Can you relate? But what's the advice for making sure that you're tuned into what's important, and then, there is an on-off switch, or maybe it's a dimming switch.
That's
maybe
probably more accurate.
Yeah, maybe it's a dimming switch. So a piece of advice that you'd give, as the dad figure in this business, and, as somebody that's, I'm sure, been a huge inspiration business-wise to your kids.
Well, number one, I'm just, I'm always so impressed by Kris and the woman she's become. She's got an amazing, perspective on life at a pretty young age. So, hats off to her for that. But for me, I think you just need to be able to set some limits on yourself. And it's going to take practice and time to do it. Like Renny was saying, it's probably closer to a dimmer switch when you're running your own company than an on-off switch when you're working for someone. But as I moved up, within the healthcare industry, I had a lot of responsibility on me. there was no turning that off. I could hardly dim it, but I could hit the pause button. So I think I got good at hitting the pause button for a period of time where I would just compartmentalize that over here. I'd be, with my kids. When they'd go to bed, I could hit that resume button.
There you go.
So I think, everybody's just got to be purposeful about that. It doesn't come naturally to do this kind of compartmentalization. But I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're wearing so many different hats, it's an important skill for you to, number one, recognize that you should develop it. And number two, start to implement it, because it'll pay dividends. You'll end up with a kid as awesome as Kris someday. Oh. I wish that on everyone. Now I'm 60 years old. Both my kids are adults, and now Kyle is a father himself. And I see him, working endlessly, but he works a lot really late at night after Jake goes to bed because he wants to be there and be participative.
I love it.
So, you just got to be purposeful about it. Take a step back. Yeah. And I always urge people this, have some quiet time to yourself to start reflecting. Man, reflect on why are you doing what you're doing? It's a long-term vision that you guys should all have. You're doing what you're doing because you want to create something that's got long-term viability that lets you achieve a certain lifestyle. It's not about you're doing it because you want to just make a crap ton of money. You're doing that for a reason. You're supporting a whole ecosystem around yourself and your family and your friends. So, and employees, that's another thing. Be mindful that you're taking the responsibility upon yourselves as an employer to enroll those people into something that's more meaningful than just making a buck.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, wise words right there. I mean, wise words. So let's go into optimizing your business a little bit. Naturally, I've had this, I wordsmithed out a saying I've used for most of my life, and it's dream, vision, plan, execute. And it really came from my early years on SAR teams, on search and rescue teams, is that, when I was really young, and it just, everything, in SAR is about planning and then being what we call semper gumby, is being flexible in your plans. Mm-hmm. But, dream it, vision it, plan it, execute it. You got to have clear goals. You got to, I'll tell you, mine constantly, I had somebody rag on me a little bit back, and it sticks in my mind. I mentioned it several times. Man, you got way too many ideas that you throw out so many things and you only execute a couple of them. Well, guess what? Get used to it because as my passion and my abilities build, I'm going to go from 1,000 a week to 2,000 a week. And so if you don't like the idea mill right now, you're going to hate it in a year. It's going to drive you crazy. And off of 2,000, I'll probably only execute maybe one. But Warren Buffett, I got the opportunity to be around Warren Buffett twice. I had a decent conversation with him once that was about 45 seconds long. Boy, I'll tell you what, that guy, he was constantly writing in this little notebook. I bet he has 1,000 ideas an hour. His mind is so deep. It was just, you could just see him. You'd have his 100% attention, and he'd say, no, that's a great idea. And then he'd write down. I'm like, what was that my idea?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you reiterate that back to me?
Yeah. I mean, it was just amazing. But now, okay, so I walk into the parking lot. I'm in Pennsylvania. I see a Audi R8 in the parking lot, and it's got Urable on it, or I was looking at it from a distance, and I go, okay, Urable. What the hell is a Urable? And I was like, this is a cool car, but what's a Urable? And I was like, God, cool. There's a race car driver or somebody that's going to speak, at Barry's event, man. This is cool because this looks like something cool. And I get in there, and you guys are in there, and then I hear you speak, and I hear your passion, and I hear you guys shared your dream, and you shared your vision on Urable. And I was like, okay, these guys have got a plan, and if they start executing it, it's going to be a game changer. And guess what? You guys have been a game changer. You have been one of the biggest blessings in the industry in modern times, because you set all, there's some great in the software side of things. We got, you guys, you're the same way, Switzerland, right? You got friends on every side. But I think to give you guys credit is you brought it to the forefront. And your passion and your attitudes and your drive and your willingness to help others become successful was such a draw. Now, software is a huge part of optimizing your business. Is that all of us that are serious entrepreneurs have used various systems of software. One of my biggest mentors was really big time involved in creating TurboTax. And I'm not going to mention his name, but he might be on there right now. And he's been a huge inspiration to me. He's got $1 gazillion. And I hope somewhere in his kindness and his will, you listen to this, my name's in there, because I take your shit all the time. We're really good friends, as you can tell. He said that his software, their designs, brought taxation in realities to the average American. You guys in your software brought entrepreneurship to the forefront of our industry. And so what have you seen since that day one, way back, because you guys weren't even launched when we met? What have you seen? Take me through the journey of that early introduction to detailing. And Michael, you said it, you've been buying coatings and you could see that you're addicted to it, but it wasn't ran right. What's that evolution been just since that first day?
Well, just if I could, I'll give you guys a little scoop because I just announced this today. And this really brings it full circle from that first time that, Barry invited us to that dyslexia event. Mm-hmm. And again, we were nobody, we were a family with an idea and, a skill base. To right now, we're partnering up with SB3 and we will be on the main floor at SEMA, sharing the booth with them. Wow. Which is just unbelievable for us, right? So we really launched in 2019 of November for all intents and purposes. So 3 years later, here we are partnering up with another, brand on a meteoric trajectory. I never would have foreseen this. I mean, I can see big things and I never would have saw this, that we'd have this opportunity. So it's really come full circle at this point. Mm-hmm. So it's just a surreal moment for us.
That's awesome.
But back to your original question, just about, the journey kind of from then to here. I think we absolutely, and this sounds so cliche, but we stayed authentic to ourselves. We had, large players, I'll call it, in the industry that wanted, to get on board, have us, pay them to support it. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't want that kind of thing. I said, no, we really want to just be organic about this and totally authentic. If people want to get behind Urable and support it, it is because they've got energy around it and it's made an impact in their lives and their business. And that's more of the support that we were hoping to be able to generate. You never know when you're launching it, are we going to hit the bullseye with this? We felt like we were going to. We're pretty good at executing and we're pretty good at adjusting, like you were saying. But you don't know until you enter it. And I had plenty of people saying, oh man, you're never going to make it. You guys are outsiders. This is a very, internally focused industry. If you're not one of us, you'll never, be successful. I'm like, I totally disagree. I think the fact that I'm coming at this from outside the industry as a consumer is absolutely what you guys need, because I'm all about trying to make you guys look good to your consumer. Mm-hmm. The software, all the fancy stuff it does is just the tool that enables us to make these companies look good.
Mm-hmm. And actually, one really quick thing, coming back to detailing for dyslexia, because that was the first time we met you, and we were so new into the industry. At least for me, Dad, maybe it was different for you, But I didn't even know sort of the scope of who you were, Renny. And I remember going in and we met a few people before you got there and everybody was like, oh my God, did you hear Renny Doyle is coming? And I was like, totally. I was like, whoever that guy is, okay.
Whatever. Yeah, I'm just an average dude that, I don't know. Yeah, that's a crack up. That's fun. Well, it's like coming out, seeing that car. I mean, the first thing I'm attracted to, and then I'm like, okay, somebody's playing and somebody's playing hard. I thought it was a race car team or something. I was like, Barry, who the hell did you bring in here? It's a software.
But that's one of the things, that I imparted on the kids. And I really got this from my dad because he always told me, if you're going to do something, do it like you mean it.
Amen.
So I tried to impart that on my kids too. If you're going to go in and do something, don't do it. And my dad's thing was, don't do it half-assed.
like anything worth doing is worth doing well.
That's exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you an example of this. I'm not going to say what I did, but recently, I decided to do a lot of things. We went back, we adjusted our schedule and our 5-day training, and we went back to how we used to do it a decade ago, but we've refined everything. So we said, well, hold on. Wonder if we do these, wonder if we switch everything around. We completely, all the information is the same. It's when we deliver it and how we, the days and everything else. Game changer. Then I added something on at that last training I used to do with every single detailing company or with every single detailing client. I will share. I handed everybody when they left a personalized, handwritten, plain thank you card. I did the same thing at Chris West event. Is I gave a couple of people that I really appreciate in the industry a handwritten. You would not believe something so simple, but the impact it had. And I'm like, God, why do we forget sometimes of just appreciation? And so it's
Look what's right here by my desk.
Oh yeah,
Chris.
Oh, look at that.
From Chris Williams.
Yeah. Is that amazing or what? Look at that.
And Daniel also.
Yeah. So this is right here next to my desk as a constant reminder that, it's the little things, and you just got to, focus on the little things each day, and you can end up making an impact.
So, I've watched we've been involved. We started testing detailing software back, early 2000s, it's 20 years ago, and we saw the value of it, but it was a real it was an uphill battle for those involved at those early stages. And again, to give credit to you, I really think that you guys have been, you look at the big brands, of detailing and all those, the legacy brands that have been around, is sometimes when the new brands, look at ceramic coatings, what ceramic coatings alone have done for the industry, and a relatively newcomer really changed the entire industry. And I think that you guys did that same thing. So software, what are you seeing when optimizing the difference? You've seen companies not using software, and then all of a sudden they bring software up and they've got some legacy time behind them with the software. What are you seeing? What's the differences in those companies?
I mean,
Chris, you see it every day.
Yeah, I would say something that I think a lot of people don't think about is just the psychology behind it. And, as a consumer, you want to feel cool for using a good product. And so it works kind of both ways. Like, our users can feel cool because the product looks cool, and then they feel cool telling other people about it, because then they're going to see that that's a cool product, and like that means that this person is cool and I want to be cool too. And then it even translates even further into then the business with their customers. Their customer is getting automated messaging branded emails, approval process, online payments, all these very kind of cool things. And then they feel cool for taking their car to that detail business. And I'm going to tell other people because then they'll think I'm cool. It's literally like all about just making people feel cool and smart for making the decisions that they made. And I think that plays a big role. You go to a detail shop that's just handwriting invoices and collecting checks versus one that has things automated and looking really flashy and high tech online. I'm taking my nice car over to that one. That guy sounds way cooler. And he sounds like he probably has better services because everything around it is also contributing to that image. And so I think that's been a real big game changer from moving to just sort of pen and paper to then, software. I think it just kind of elevates the image of the industry as a whole.
Amen. Amen.
And that's where the importance of the culture you guys are creating as well comes in, right? Because being part of that culture is what's attractive and what's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some notes. I'm going to read down through these, and I want you guys, I've taken notes, and I'm going to put some high points of this conversation out at the end. And I want you guys to maybe hit on these things as I go down through them. I'm just going to say them all. And I want, and a lot of this is Kris adding in and then myself adding in items, but I want everybody, these are things that a lot of people don't relate back to software. But when I go through these lists, I don't think there's any of them that are not. So use of software, let's talk about leveraging solutions that personalize the experience. Let's talk about tools that help you automate your time and processes that consume that time. Let's talk about scheduling. Let's talking about improved communication. Let's talk about creating a great customer experience. Let's talk about developing a social presence and process to interact with people, engage with your audience on a regular basis. We call it constant contact. Leveraging and understanding your data and your numbers, both what your customers are buying and then also what you're making money off of. Hiring and keeping the right people. How do you keep the right? I'm not worried about the wrong people. I'll get rid of them. What I'm worried about is how engaging the right people and making that process, making your workplace a better place for the people that work with you, optimizing your time and productivity through delegation and prioritizing, and improving your value of your sales. What, Kris, you just mentioned those things. What's bringing a greater value to your company? How many of those don't relate to software?
They all do. Yeah.
Every single one of them. But now, how cool is it that as a late coming industry now, how long Michael, as the medical industry relied on software?
Oh man. So I was covering Northern California, Kaiser. So all of it from how far south? Maybe Gilroy all the way up to Santa Rosa and out to Sacramento. I was covering that whole area in the late 80s. And they had everything wired. I mean everything, right? But even they were behind a lot of industries. Healthcare was a little bit of a late comer because the data privacy issues were so intense. There was a lot of infrastructure that needed to be built that, frankly, other industries didn't really need to focus on as much. So it took a little while for healthcare to get caught up to modern times. But like when my brother and I invented KumaCare, the software system that runs all these anti-coag clinics around the world, that was just a freaking great idea. Why didn't somebody think of that 30 years earlier? I have no idea.
They probably did, and they sat on their hands. You guys took action.
Yeah. Hey, well, we are big on execution, man, because nothing, you can have the best ideas ever. And if you don't execute on them, then they never materialized anything.
Amen.
So yeah, you got to be able to have the fortitude to step up to the plate and risk big failure. That's ultimately what you got to get comfortable with is, when you're going to execute, you're risking failure at that point. When it's just an idea, you're not risking failure. It's just an idea. But when you execute, you got to get comfortable with, putting the risk of failure on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things other industries have seen value in, and the detailing industry finally, and the automotive industry, period. It's funny because we're looking for, we had a deal with Porsche kind of a membership influencer. They gave us a good deal on it. And then all of a sudden Porsche's like, well, this is great. It's been great. But, we're going to start charging you more than what your house cost you, for this program. So needless to say, Diane and I moved on. So Diane's, had to adjust to not having a new Porsche every 2 weeks to drive. We're looking at Mazdas right now. And so we're car shopping, and it's funny on how a few of the dealerships are really utilizing software to make the interaction better. And then some are still stuck in 1980.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's such a turnoff as a consumer to deal with this guy, Joe, that no pun, no, if your name's Joe, nothing against you, but this guy Joe that's 56 years old and has been selling cars since the 80s, and he's still kind of stuck in the era of Karate Kid, and it's so old fashioned and so yesterday, and such a turnoff. And if they only got it, that if they'd make my experience better, they'd have a lot better chance of selling a vehicle. But because they're just not connecting right, it's a turnoff.
And we've got that really unfolding in the detailing industry now. Those that are really gravitated towards a systems approach, whether it be Urable or another system, we're advocates of systematizing, right? Because there's so many benefits to it. So those entities that have taken that step, they are going to be the long-term survivors in this industry. The other ones that aren't going to do it, they are going to be drifting farther behind, and customers are not going to gravitate towards them. I don't care if they're the cheapest place in the market. It doesn't matter, right? And those aren't the customers that you ultimately want when you're running a business that you want to build a long-term sustainable foundation on, right? You don't want price shoppers.
I'll tell you right now, with the economy, we don't know where it's going to go. I think it's amazing, and we're very fortunate that it's stayed as healthy as it has this long. I think we are in for a down dip. I don't know nobody knows what that down dip. Even the pros don't they don't know. When Warren Buffett goes, I don't know. That's literally what he's saying right now. Everybody's going, oh, great one, Warren Buffett. What's everything going to happen? He's like, no idea. Never seen anything like this in my life.
Oh, great one.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going. Let's get the popcorn out and watch. There's a whole generation of detailers that are in for a rude awakening because they haven't had a slow. They're 10 years in, and they think that they've made it. Unfortunately, the more, you just nailed it, Michael, is the more connected and the more interactive and the more, Kris, you mentioned it earlier, they're the cool factor. And I'm on a brand new Mac. Is Mac the best computer? Nah. Is iPhone the best phone? Nah. And Android is a lot more. Matter of fact, I had a Mac, but was with an Android phone because I love the technology. But what Apple did when I first got this, literally is a week old. When I got it, it's the packaging, the wow factor. Wow, that's cool. What Kris said. Then I opened the computer up and I'm like, oh shit, compared to my last one, this is cool. And then I started up and I'm like, it just keeps getting cooler.
Exactly. And it makes you feel like a smart consumer when you buy something cool.
Absolutely. I feel like I got 80s hair back. It's just there's something so cool, about it. Well, guess what? Your customers, Kris, you nailed it. They want cool. They really do.
And I think this industry, like in and of itself, is a cool industry. Like, you're often working on cool cars because like people want to protect their cool cars. It's very technologically advanced. Like, these products are quite scientific in how they work. And I think people are just leaning more and more into like, okay, this is like basically like physical tech, and I'm going to have software tech to surround that and like enhance that image.
Oh God, that's a great way to put it. I love that. Okay. Last request. Okay. I have a saying, it's easy. It's super easy to be clever. We see a lot of that on the online forums. Little harder to be smart. And it takes time to be wise. I was given that advice by my buddy I mentioned earlier, very successful, self-made billionaire. is he says never. Unfortunately, he doesn't watch me as close now because I'm not as young and dumb as I used to be. But he'd go in and look at something I'd post on a forum. He goes, "Oh, you know what? You're being real clever. That sounds stupid. Go take that down." And I was like, "God dang, it took me a long time to wordsmith that out and be that clever." And he's like, "No, you sound clever to a kindergartner. You sound stupid to the educated." And it took me a while to know what he's saying. And clever is really, it is. It's easy to be a smart ass. It's harder to be smart and then to be wise. The wise people, the wisest people in the industry, you don't see. Now you guys are different because you guys got to be involved in forums and respond to people and everything else. We do too, to a certain degree, but I just don't deal with cleverness. I want to deal with smart people that are going to become wise people. And so with that, what's a piece of advice that each one of you have been given that you'd like to share?
Oh boy. I'd have to think about that.
I'll start while you think. Keep your circle tight. So you mentioned that we need to be engaged in the industry, and we do. We're catering to everybody, and we want to help everybody. But there are groups out on Facebook in particular. Mm-hmm. You won't see me out there, man, because I just can't handle it. I can't handle the drama. I mean, I'll make a post maybe twice a year, right? And the admins are always like, "Oh, Abens is chiming in with some wisdom." And then I'm gone. I'm vapor because I just will not engage in the daily nonsense of some of these places. So keep your circle tight, especially with social media, because it tends to lean on the negative side of things. So like our pro group is an amazing ecosystem online. They are some of the best business owners in the industry in this group. And they've, kind of self-nominated themselves as that because they got on board with Urable pretty early. So that group right there, that is a safe space. Everybody in there contributes something, and it's either smart or wise. Right? There's none of the nonsense that goes on in there. So I attribute that to keeping the circle pretty tight, even though that circle's gotten pretty big right now. But it's the right people. So let me just piggyback on that. So one of the things that we did, and the group was asking us to do something along this line. We had this amazing amount of organic support. And I wanted to reward people for that. But I am not a fan of these full-blown affiliate type programs that are so pervasive in the industry. They have their place. I get it. I'm not going to fault them. But I didn't really want that associated with Urable. I really appreciated and I respected the organic support that we were getting from everyone. But we did go ahead and put a referral program in place to reward, our pro users for, the support that they're giving us. And, they get a little something, and, the people coming in that they refer, they get a little break. But I told them, I said, don't put this stuff out in the forums. If I see it, being blasted out in the forums, I'll kill that program because I don't want it like that. This isn't about getting more people into the Urable community. It's about getting the right people into the Urable community, right? So it's like, don't invite somebody or refer somebody to Urable if you're not willing to invite them to your dinner table. So I am really uptight about this, but it all goes back to keeping the circle tight.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I like that.
Guys, look at this. It always cracks me up because people sit there. I've got a page of notes. Here I'm conducting the damn podcast, and I guess that goes back to Michael, your thing. If it just doesn't shut off, that passion doesn't shut off. And Kris, I think you're already here. You're such an impressive young lady. I mean, it just, you hung out with. You hung out with two of our daughters.
I did.
Yeah. And, you guys, it's all different personalities, right? It's such dynamic personalities, each one of you in your own unique way. And so, again, I think that, Michael, to your credit and your wife's credit, is that your kids, I think, they're not clever. they got through that stage very quickly. They're very smart and already wise to a lot of things. That's really cool. So Kris, now I'm going to put you on the spot. So one little piece of advice.
Well, I mean, I do want to say I don't want to indulge myself to the point of saying that I'm wise. I'm 28. I understand where I'm at in life. I'm still learning. And I would say, just to go along with that, having mentors. And I mean, I'm incredibly blessed to have my father as a mentor in both life and in business. And I can really see the people that are willing to still learn, even if they've been in the industry for decades. Those are the people that I feel like are really growing with the industry, because this is a fast moving industry. You have to be willing to grow and learn and change and pivot. And so I think the people that have really embraced mentorship and listening to other people, whether they are people that are older or just like colleagues, people that are in the same place but maybe navigated things in different ways, I think that is just so important. And that's something that I've really been able to benefit from, just from, having my dad, and even having Kyle. Like Kyle and I, we're young, but there's so much that we can learn from each other. And I think that should just be carried into the industry as a whole.
That's awesome. Well, all right. How do people connect with you? Yeah, I mean, again, if they're under a rock, they might be able to find you. If they're under a boulder, let's go to those people that are under a boulder. Okay.
Okay. We have a lot of ways that you can get in touch with us. One of our big goals just coming into the industry was making sure that we were really accessible. We always say there's nothing more annoying than a software company that you can't get in touch with. So we have many avenues to be able to reach out to us. On our website, we have a live chat that literally is basically texting us. That hooks up to all of our phones and all of our computers. So that's a really quick way to get in touch. The same live chat exists right within Urable itself. You can reach out to us on Facebook. That sends it to the same exact spot. You're basically texting us. My phone number, maybe stupidly, is plastered on like everything. So you can literally call me or text me. We just try to make sure that, if you do want to get in touch, it's very easy to get in touch. And then, of course, we have our email, which is just support@urable.com, if you ever want to just reach out to us that way.
There you go. Now, boys, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to switch this around. I'm kind of like an uncle to her, but I can't. There's something on the table that if you guys don't conduct yourself in a gentlemanlike fashion, I will bring this to the next event and introduce it to you. So be good. Be good. She's gone to Vegas and partied with my daughters. I have an entitlement of protecting her. Okay.
You are a dad too. I have like 5 different, what I call industry dads. And I've actually realized that all of them, and this is just by happenstance, are all fathers to daughters. And I'll take it even further, fathers to kick-ass daughters. So I don't know if that's something that I'm particularly drawn to, because I also have a kick-ass dad.
Right. There's certain individuals that you become very protective over, and it's out of respect. And, I'm protective. Diane will tell you, is the only time that I've ever gotten in conflicts while we've been married is when it involves kids or women, is I'm pretty, you'll see, especially right now, that emotional, the testosterone, the estrogen will disappear. The testosterone will come out real quick. And so, well, hey, you guys, so takeaways from this: purposeful. I wrote that down. Self-time. You've got to have time every day. We've got a 14-year-old dog, Boomer. I've got me time with him every single day. I try to get me time with my horse at least 3 or 4 times a week. Congratulations on being on the floor at SEMA. That's a big step with SB3 Barry. He's such a great guy. Do it like you mean it. Keep your circle tight. This we didn't talk about, but I want to point it out. These 2 individuals paid credit more times than they took credit. They paid credit to other people, other organizations, and each other far more than I didn't hear a brag point, but I heard a lot of credit given. So kudos to you too, because I think and Kyle too. He's just taken. Hey, we got to find out. So we know you guys are into cars. What's Kyle into? Because we see him in the dungeon. We see him. He's the software guy, right? He's the mad scientist. What's he? I mean, he's got his family, his kids, right? But what's he really into?
He's a big time musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, I would say he hasn't done it in a little while because I think he's been so focused on Urable, but extremely talented musician. He wrote and recorded the song that his wife walked down the aisle to. He did a cover of the song that they did their first dance to. He's just extremely talented. I always say Kyle and I got very different portions of the gene pool. Kyle got all the musical creative genes. I got all the athletic genes, and I'll take it. We are very different people.
It's funny, Kris, because my big brother and I are the same way, is that he got all the I love music. And I'll be sitting there and I'll be jamming out, he lived with us. So I'll be singing. And he's like, hey, do me a favor. Guess what? He goes, you're ruining that song. Just stop. And I'm like, dude, I'm passionate about it. He goes, you know what? Silence. And I'm like, come on, let's go lift. Well, hey guys, thanks for all that you've, not only for coming on today, but thanks for all that you continue to do for the industry. And just being, again, you're not clever and you're definitely not smart. You're wise. And Michael, we appreciate that, sharing that wisdom with your kids so they can share it with the rest of the industry. Because I think you guys do a great job of lifting it up and being a great representative, with all the other software companies of you guys play so well together and complement each other. And I just love to see leadership like this in the industry. And thanks for being wonderful communicators. Thanks for always backing up our group too. You're always there for us. And we definitely appreciate that. And we can't wait to see you. We'll see you on the floor at SEMA and Mobile Tech. Can you believe it? Mobile Tech is just right around the corner.
Yeah, geez.
Went by fast. Yeah, right. Geez. It's like, wow. Well, guys, thank you so much. And for those that, this is going, make sure to subscribe for those that are on the YouTube. Make a comment. We love to hear it. Sorry, this one's been so engaging. I couldn't get into the messages. There's a lot of them on there. But thank you guys for always, taking the support in the show. Kris and I really appreciate it. Hi, Diane. It's funny because we were sitting here. If you saw me look down, I just sent a message to my oldest daughter and I said, I love you. And she came back and she's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm on the podcast. She goes, what? I just had to tell her I love her, but thanks you guys and take care. We'll see you soon. And again, thanks for coming on, Kris.
Oh, thanks for having us. Love it.
Really
that was a good time.
We'll see Kris up here next week. We got our 5-day training happening up here. Yep. We've got a very busy 6 weeks in front of us.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna go pretty hard for the next 6 weeks, and I'm gonna be back in your guys' kind of close to you. I'm gonna be back in flying to Boston here in a couple weeks, go speak at an aftermarket event that they asked us to come in and go do the keynote and then fly in, fly out type of thing. But I can't wait to get back there and do it. It's a whole new audience and it'll be a lot of fun. So, and then of course, right behind that, SEMA. So yeah, right behind us. All right, guys. Hey, take care. Happy detailing, everybody. And make sure to go, really, I hope you guys took notes because this has been huge today. So Kris, thank you. Michael, thank you. Tell Kyle, we said, good luck with the new house and congratulations on getting your brother moving out.
My house doesn't look like a daycare ananymore. This is incredible.
Yeah, right? Like, wow, hey. Yeah. All right, guys. You guys take care, okay? And, thanks again for coming in. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right, guys. See you later.